The Browns, with the obvious need for wide receiver help besides Amari Cooper, acquire Elijah Moore, and they get also the Jets' 2023 third-rounder in exchange for the Browns sending back this year's second-round pick, which was pick 42 in this draft. The Jets signed McCall Hardman on a one-year deal, so they bring Hardman in. They shipped Elijah Moore out. Before we get to all the Jets receiver impacts, let's talk about the Browns with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore did not have the season he had hoped for last year. Now he goes into what we expect will be a more potential explosive situation for him in Cleveland.
This is the chance for Elijah Moore to resurrect his career. Like, the guy didn't suddenly forget how to play football. This is a guy who showed flashes as a rookie, somebody who a lot of people liked coming out of college as well. And so obviously it went south in New York, but it was hard to see a path to fantasy relevancy for him in New York, not with Garrett Wilson, not with the signing of Alan Lazard. They've also got some other mouths to feed, as we talk about, with Hardman coming in and some of the other guys. So Corey Davis still currently on the roster. So it was hard to see a path for Elijah Moore to have fantasy relevancy this year in New York. Now he's got a chance in Cleveland, where it's really it's Amari Cooper, and then we don't know. There's Donovan Peoples-Jones, and they've got David Bell as well, and they've got some guys, but the fact is that I think there's a chance that Elijah Moore is the number 2 receiver. They've got Njoku as well, who will be a big part of the passing offense. But there's a chance. You're probably not drafting Elijah Moore, except you're in a super deep league. But he is. I think there's a chance for fantasy relevancy. There's a chance we'll be talking about Elijah Moore this season as a hot pickup or potentially as a late-round sleeper as we see what Cleveland does the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think you said that Elijah Moore hasn't forgotten how to play football. I don't think Deshaun Watson's forgotten how to play football either, and that team has so much upside the rest of the way. Like, they have the same odds as the Raiders to win the AFC. They have worse odds than the Broncos. To me, the Browns have a ton of upside, and I would not be surprised at all if they win the division and in an AFC title game.
As for the Jets,
especially, by the way, in a division that might not have Lamar Jackson.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, like, you've got the Bengals there that are concerned.
They're the favorite.
Right, but, the Steelers are 8-9. Yeah. 8-9, 9-8, 7-10. They're always going to be like kind of middle of the pack. So anyway, Browns become interesting.
So with this trade for the Jets, all the talk immediately pivots to, does this open the door for Odell Beckham to join the Jets when they do finalize a trade for Aaron Rodgers? And we did hear from Robert Saleh on Odell Beckham this week.
Things have to work out. Obviously, there's a whole lot of different things. And again, I apologize, I'm deferring to Joe a lot, but those are things like when you start talking money and all that stuff, it becomes something else. So that's, again, something I'd have to defer to Joe.
So, Saleh, very brief on Odell Beckham. We know Rodgers was not. Rodgers was pretty honest about hopes of playing with Odell Beckham, or why wouldn't you want to? At this stage, coming off the injury, not playing in a while, how do we even project Odell's impact, even if it is in a good quarterback situation but a crowded situation?
I don't think you can.
Right?
I think fantasy-wise, it's a nice-to-have, must-have. Would not want to leave the draft needing to count on Odell Beckham Jr. It's one of those things that you draft him as your 4th wide receiver and you hope you get. You hope you get the old OBJ, but if it doesn't work out, then you're like, it's fine. I've got my 2 starters. I've got a 3rd guy that I can slot in on bye weeks and that kind of thing. So that's what I would not. He might be overdrafted, especially if he goes to New York. He's a big name paired with Rodgers, assuming that trade goes through. So you could see a scenario where he gets overdrafted, but in terms of where I'll rank him and where I'll value him is a nice to have sleeper. But I would not want to count on him for anything this season.
Yeah, and I mean, he was really good with the Rams. He did his job. He probably would have won Super Bowl MVP if he didn't tear his ACL in that game. But I mean, you're taking Alan Lazard over Odell Beckham, and there is a chance as well that Mecole Hardman might produce more than Odell. We just don't know with the injury and the age.
Yep.
Another wide receiver move on the market, wave 2 of the market here, guys. The Panthers continue to add to their wide receiver room. We know they signed Adam Thielen after trading DJ Moore. They signed DJ Chark from formerly of the Lions, 1 year, $5 million contract here. Jay, obviously not maybe a big needle mover, but there's a lot of opportunity there in Carolina and what could be a solid offense depending on how their rookie quarterback plays.
Yeah, definitely, and they've got a really good offensive line, which helps. I mean, this is probably slightly bad for Thielen that there's another established vet there. I mean, DJ Chark's not super exciting, but I think it certainly raises the level of competence, and then probably also is relevant for, if it is CJ Stroud who's coming in there, it probably helps him, just that he's got more competent vets around him.
Yeah, I would agree.
All right, a couple other free agent moves, maybe lower tier here. I want to know if any of these stand out to you guys. The Ravens signed Nelson Aguilar to a 1-year, $3.25 million deal. The Colts signed Isaiah McKenzie. The Giants just continue to add every slot wide receiver.
What's going on with the Giants?
On the market.
17 wide receivers.
And they're all play the slot, by the way. Jameson Crowder goes.
They're not all going to make the team, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing.
The Cowboys signed Ronald Jones to a 1-year, $1.23 million deal. Kind of interesting there, considering it's just Pollard, but we know they're going to add a running back in the draft. The Jags signed Dearness Johnson to a 1-year deal, and then the Raiders add to their tight end room by signing Austin Hooper to a 1-year, $2.8 million deal.
So the three things that jump out at me, first off, just a question for you, Jay. Do you think when the Ravens signed Nelson Aguilar that's why Lamar Jackson demanded the trade? Like, like he was just like, now I'm done. Now I'm done. For the love of God. That's your big free agent wide receiver move that you get me? Is
He's
Nelson
very
Aguilar,
much
I'm out.
from the same cloth as Devin Duvernay, DeMarcus Robinson.
They just keep doing this.
Same
Yes.
brand. How about we get DeAndre Hopkins?
Samuel Watkins, Deshaun Jackson.
Exactly. Could you? But the two ones that are interesting to me, the most interesting to me of all those is Austin Hooper.
Sure.
Right, I mean, again, Darren Waller leaves a big target share. Foster Moreau has retired, or
medical leave with cancer.
Right,
yes.
exactly.
Yep.
So awful situation with Foster. But the fact is Austin Hooper is a nice pass catching tight end. Somebody who at one point in his career was the #1 tight end in fantasy back in Atlanta his last year with the Falcons. And so in an offense that we don't think is going to be that, on a team that we don't think is going to have that good of a defense, and is going to be having to throw a decent amount. Garoppolo has used his tight end. Obviously, we've seen it with Kittle in the past. Hooper becomes kind of interesting to me. It's kind of like if you punt on tight end and you're looking late, like to me, Austin, of all those free agent signings, Austin Hooper with the Raiders becomes kind of interesting. Remember, Raiders tight ends had an 18% target share last season.
Yep. Isaiah McKenzie might be wide receiver 2 on the Colts if Alec Pierce doesn't make a big move behind Pittman. So that could
lost
be
Paris Campbell.
Yeah, lost Paris Campbell. That could be relevant.
Yeah, and I will say also that, I mean, I guess we'll see what happens with Jermichael Hasty, but Dearness Johnson, who is, when he's gotten an opportunity to start in Cleveland, has proven himself. He becomes an interesting insurance back for those that draft Travis Etienne high.
All right, that's a thin running back room.
And he's a good guy, and it's a good offense, and he's a good player in a good offense, and so I think he would be a must draft if you draft Travis Etienne. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.